Welcome. You've arrived at the quiet part of your day. There's nothing you need to do now, nowhere to go, just this moment, and the soft rhythm of your breath. Let your body grow heavy, like it's melting into the bed beneath you. Let your shoulders loosen, your hands unclench, and your thoughts begin to slow. Tonight we'll drift through a gentle story, one that asks nothing of you except to listen, or not. It's okay to let the words fade in and out, like waves on a shore you once walked in a dream. So close your eyes and let the quiet carry you. You're safe here, you're held, and sleep is already on its way.
Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere warm, whispery and scented with roasted spice and honey wine. Imagine yourself walking barefoot across stone tiles still holding the sun's heat, past shadowy figures draped in deep indigo robes. A faint aroma of frankincense curls through the air. Somewhere nearby, a goat bleats once and then goes quiet. You've arrived just in time for a feast that's been forgotten by nearly everyone except the dust, the stars, and a few very sleepy historians. You're at an Ethiopian imperial banquet. Though don't expect to be handed a menu, there's no velvet rope, no TikTok influencers, and absolutely no forks. Here food is sacred, performances are whispering, well, it doesn't quite behave. The feast starts late, like you might not survive this if you're hungry. Late, but once it begins, it swallows the night whole. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your city and local time. I love seeing where and when people are listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You enter through a crescent-shaped gate flanked by carved lions. Stylized, almost cartoonish, their jaws open in an eternal warning. This isn't just decor. In the days of the Solomonic dynasty, lions weren't just symbols. They were sometimes guests, or more accurately, boundaries. You don't stray too far from the torchlight tonight. The courtyard is vast. Stone columns circle the edges like sentinels. The flicker of flame from oil lanterns dances across etched limestone. People don't talk much here. The quiet isn't oppressive. It's respectful, anticipatory, almost theatrical. Banquets, especially imperial ones, begin with ritual, not rumbling stomachs. You spot a woman balancing a carved wooden bowl on her head, gliding through the crowd like she's part of the wind. That bowl, probably filled with something like ketema, an early-stage grain mash, not unlike sourdough starter. Guests won't eat it. It's for the ancestors, and it's the first thing placed on the feast altar. Here's a fact that's often overlooked. Ethiopian feasts in the highlands began not with meat or wine, but with scent. Incense is waved in slow spirals around the space, using bundled reeds or fine metal censers. It's a way of feeding the air, as one elder once described it. Historians still argue whether the practice has roots in ancient South Arabian migration, or if it predates all of that entirely. But you're not just watching the space being blessed. You're breathing it in, and if you catch a faint bitter note, that might be tenadam, Ethiopian rue, a strong-smelling herb thought to ward off misfortune and mosquitoes, depending who you ask. There's something comforting about how it lingers. You sit. There's no assigned seating, technically, but everyone knows where they belong. It's not snobby, it's intuitive, reinforced by years of cultural rhythm. Elders near the center, youth near the fringe. Outsiders? They watch, wide-eyed and unsure, exactly where you are now. One elder leans toward you, his beard braided with fine threads of silver. Don't eat quickly, he says. You might miss the stories. It's not just good advice, it's a warning. These banquets much about myth and memory as they are about calories. You glance to your right. A servant rolls a stone over an unseen groove in the floor, revealing a pit oven. You smell roasted lamb, Dora Watt maybe, or Tibbs, sizzling in clay pots pulled from the earth itself. This, by the way, is not some rustic countryside thing. This is royal engineering. Underground ovens retained heat for hours and kept the meat smoke-free. Some scholars believe the design may have been influenced by ancient Egyptian bread kilns. Others think it's uniquely Ethiopian. As usual, historians still argue. The music hasn't started yet, but you hear the faint tuning of a masenko, a single-stringed bowed instrument that somehow captures the ache of a long walk home. And maybe that's the point. Banquets weren't just meals. They were how a nation with more than 80 ethnic groups reminded itself it's still shared one table. A servant approaches with something that looks like a flat circular cushion. Nope, it's injera, Ethiopia's spongy, tangy bread that doubles as plate, spoon, and social glue. But not yet. The ritual must finish first. You notice a small metal pitcher being passed from guest to guest along the ceramic bowl. One pours, the other catches the stream. No touching. This is the hand-washing ceremony. Tena yistiling. Health be upon you. And if someone pours too fast, it's seen as impatience. Pour too slow, you're showing off. Everything here has its rhythm, and you'll learn it eventually. By now, the courtyard is glowing with dozens of lanterns, some suspended from fig trees, like others perched atop poles with little carved birds on the ends. You feel like you've slipped into a scene from a medieval manuscript, except the air is alive, the people real, and your stomach definitely realer. Then comes the hush. Every feast has one. The breath before the plunge. A priest recites something in Gez, the ancient liturgical language still used in Ethiopian Orthodox tradition. You don't understand the words, but their cadence is as steady as water over stone. You close your eyes for a moment. You're not dreaming yet, but you're getting closer. Your eyes drift open again as a subtle shift rolls through the crowd. Less a sound, more a change in posture. The incense still hangs like a sleepy fog in the air, curling in lazy spirals, but something is stirring. A procession begins at the far end of the courtyard. No trumpets, no dramatic entrance, just slow, deliberate movement. First come the oil bearers. Their arms glisten under the flickering light, each carrying carved wooden flasks sealed with beeswax. The smell changes from sharp, cleansing frankincense to something richer, like nutmeg that's been toasted over coals, and the faint medicinal undertone of eucalyptus bark. You wonder if this is what a mountain forest smells like just before rain. A young girl dips her fingers into one of the oils and dabs a small spot behind your ear. The gesture is quiet, reverent. You're told this blend is called basobela, often used to mark guests of honor, or at least to cover up the fact that you've been sitting for an hour and still haven't eaten. The scent clings, earthy and floral all at once, and it's oddly grounding. Now, the hands. Dozens of them, gliding through the dark with silver bowls, dried leaves, and soft linen. This isn't the food yet. This is prelude. Ritual cleansing. You watch as fingers are carefully wiped down with damp cloths, and in some cases brushed with tiny bunches of fragrant grass. Think of it as spiritual exfoliation, or the world's oldest VIP prep service. It's hard to be impatient with hunger when you're being pampered like a sacred statue. You're handed a small round leaf, shiny, slightly bitter-smelling. It's koseret, a traditional herb that's chewed not for the taste, but to awaken the tongue. Scholars are still unsure whether this tradition originated with the Aksumite Empire's coastal traders, or if it traveled from the Arabian Peninsula with migrating priests. Either way, it works. You feel a subtle tingle. Now the feast is close. Not yet here, but you're on the threshold. As if on cue, the musical hum of the kra begins, 6 strings plucked softly, a harp-like sound that stretches across the courtyard like the sigh of an old storyteller beginning their tale. It's joined by the rhythmic kebero drum, low, muffled, like a heartbeat under a wool blanket. There's something primal in it. Like you've heard it before, maybe when you were very small, or maybe in a dream you forgot to wake from. You notice a pattern. The music rises slightly whenever one of the elders speaks, not interrupting, not competing, just swelling gently under their words like an orchestral bed. What they're saying isn't public, just soft stories passed from one knee to the next. My uncle, one begins, used to say the best food was made in silence. That's how the enset tree listens. Wait, the enset tree? You tilt your head, curious. This apparently is the queen of the banquet table. Often called the false banana, enset looks like a banana plant, grows like one, but instead of fruit, it offers a starchy bulb and trunk pulp. Women, always women, ferment it underground for weeks, sometimes months, before it becomes something edible. The result? Kocho, a chewy, pancake-like base that smells a bit like sourdough and tastes like resilience. A fringe tradition, maybe, but foundational. And here's your quirky tidbit for the night. Some insect groves were planted as living wedding dowries. A bride's worth wasn't just counted in goats or gold, but in how well her family managed their fermentation pits. The music softens again. Someone is reciting a poem now, their voice barely rising above the coals. It's about butter. No, seriously, just butter. But it's not just about the churn, it's about clarity. The way ghee clears, they say, is how the mind should be before it speaks. You smile. You didn't expect philosophical dairy metaphors tonight. And now, finally, movement near the central table. A man with hands like carved stone lifts a lid from a large, shallow basket. Steam unfurls. You catch the scent of ginger, garlic, and something sharp. Berbera, perhaps. A powdered spice blend that includes chili, fenugreek, cloves, and 10 other ingredients, depending on whose aunt made it. It's the cornerstone of Ethiopian flavor. Historians still debate whether berbere evolved locally or was a culinary echo of ancient Indian trade routes. The first bite doesn't come on a plate, it's offered to you by hand. A small piece of injera pinched around spiced lentils. You open your mouth automatically. This is a gesture of trust, a communal bite, an edible handshake, and wow, warm, tangy, layered. The flavors unfold slowly, like a lazy cat stretching on a windowsill. You swallow and suddenly understand why no one's been in a hurry. This isn't fast food, this is memory food, and memory takes its time. To your left, someone is carving small portions of raw beef.
Tersiger!
The meat is sliced paper thin and offered with dipping sauces and mustardy herbs, but no forks. The dagger used to carve it doubles as the serving tool. And yes, it's sharp. One wrong move and someone loses an appetite or a fingertip. The unspoken rule? Trust the server and maybe don't make them laugh mid-slice. You're not expected to eat much. A few bites, some sips. The night is still unfolding. This was just the overture. But as you lean back and listen to the low rhythm of drums, the laughter rising like sparks and the wind stirring the lanterns overhead, you realize something. You're not full, but you are fed. The full moon hangs low above the courtyard now, bathing everything in silver. The lanterns flicker in response, as though unsure whether they're still needed. But here, in the Ethiopian highlands, the moon has always been more than decoration. You begin to realize that this isn't just a feast. It's part of a calendar written in shadow and light. The lunar cycle governs the rhythm of life, from planting to fasting, from weddings to funerals, and yes, to feasting. You hear someone murmur almost to themselves, "Full moon, fat goat." It sounds like a proverb, and maybe it is. Goats were often slaughtered during the full moon, when the body's internal fluids were believed to be most aligned, whatever that means. Historians still argue whether this belief has any basis in physiology, astrology, or pure superstition, but you don't question the logic tonight. The meat does taste suspiciously tender. There's a sense of timing that runs deeper than clock hands or alarms. You look around and notice it. No one's wearing a watch. There's no table countdown, no starter's pistol. Time at this banquet flows like honey wine, slow, golden, and a little sticky in the best way. A young boy carrying a stack of flat baskets shuffles past you. Each basket is woven from dyed grass and palm fronds, and each one contains something different: roasted chickpeas, dried lentils, crispy slivers of fried garlic. Not entrees, these are signals. Texture as timepiece. You're in the crunchy phase of the evening. The crowd adjusts subtly. Someone stands to recite a brief line of scripture, and another responds with a short proverb. These verbal exchanges feel rehearsed, but no one's reading from anything. It's call and response from memory, oral tradition at its finest. One man calls out, "The hyena runs fast, but not before the moon sees." A ripple of knowing chuckles follows. You wonder how many of these proverbs even make sense anymore. But that's the point. They're here, not because they're understood, but because they're remembered. To your right, a woman in a teal shawl crushes something with the heel of her palm. Mit-meter, fierce red spice blend, somewhere between ground lightning and edible pepper spray. It's optional. But someone places a little pile next to your injera anyway, because that's the polite way of daring you. You consider trying a pinch. You do. You regret it instantly. Your mouth catches fire, your eyes water slightly, and you reach for anything to soothe the flames. Which brings us to Tala, a cloudy, mildly alcoholic barley beer often brewed in clay pots. It's less about getting drunk and more about mellowing. The taste is grassy, like rain-soaked bread. You take a sip, then another, and just like that, the spice recedes. Victory. Nearby, someone claps rhythmically. Not applause, more like a pulse. The music rises again, this time faster. A circle begins to form. Dancers stepping in slow tandem, feet brushing against the ground like they're checking for spirits. The shoulders, oh the shoulders. In Ethiopian dance, the shoulders do most of the work. They shimmy, jerk, vibrate like a bird about to take off, and it's mesmerizing. You try it, you fail, nobody notices. As the dance winds down, platters of new food appear. There's shirawat, chickpea stew, so smooth it glows like sunrise, and dorawat, chicken cooked in berbere, so thick it stains the fingers. Eggs, whole and boiled, are often dropped in last. You're told they symbolize completion, or fertility, or maybe just because they're delicious. Take your pick. Historians still haven't settled that one. And then there's the salt, not the kind you're used to. This salt is pink, grainy, and handed to you in a small horn-shaped scoop. It's not for seasoning, it's for tasting. A mineral reminder that this land once ran on salt. Back in the days when Ethiopia's northern salt caravans stretched across the Danakil desert like ghostly centipedes, slabs of salt, amoli, were currency, literal money. A man's wealth could once be measured in how many salt blocks he carried, or buried, or gifted at a feast like this. Someone near you whispers, "Salt first, then story." You nod, pretending you understand. You taste the salt, sharp, primal, almost electric. And yes, now comes the story. An elder begins, his voice as slow as syrup. He speaks of a feast that lasted 3 nights and 2 days, held by a 16th century nobleman whose name is only half remembered. According to legend, he invited every shepherd within 3 valleys, not for goodwill, but to steal their best livestock and marry off his least favourite cousin. You stifle a laugh. The elder does not. He looks dead serious. But then again, that's the magic of these tales. Somewhere between truth and tale, between historical fact and hunger-induced hallucination, there's something valuable, something sticky, like that honey wine still swirling in your cup. Oh yes, the honey wine! Tej! It's flowing again, bright yellow, thick, fragrant, brewed with gesho leaves instead of hops. Tej is somewhere between mead and mischief. You sip, and it coats your mouth in sugar and shadow. Too much, and you'll forget where you are. But tonight, just a little will do. You watch as cups are refilled. The server never breaks eye contact. They're watching to see how fast you drink, how deep you sip. There's a whole etiquette to this. To refuse more than twice, a grave insult. To down it in one go, brash but forgivable. To spill it, don't. Just don't. Your cup is full again, your plate too. Time continues to melt around the edges of the courtyard, and above it all, the moon lingers. Round, quiet, old as salt. The moon begins its slow descent, but the feast shows no signs of ending. You shift your legs, now warm from sitting cross-legged for hours, and glance down at the linen-draped mat beneath you. It's not just any mat, it's woven from unset fibers, dyed with crushed flowers and stitched by hand. This mat isn't merely decorative, it's edible history in textile form. Now's the time you learn about the tree that feeds nations, the enset. To outsiders it's called the false banana because, well, it looks like a banana tree. Broad green leaves, towering height, fibrous stem. But unlike its fruit-bearing cousin, the enset doesn't offer sweet bananas. Instead, its gifts are far stranger and perhaps more vital. Beneath its leafy disguise lies a food system older than Ethiopia itself. The core of the plant, pounded, fermented and aged, is the heart of kocha. You're handed a slice now. It's warm, slightly spongy and steamed in the unset's own leaves. The texture is dense, a bit like chewy, sour flatbread. It doesn't dance with flavour, not like the fiery Dora Wat or silky Shira. No, kocho whispers instead of sings. But that whisper carries centuries of survival. Kocho isn't just food, it's insurance. In times of drought, famine, or political unrest, a well-stocked fermentation pit could feed a family for years. You look again at the mat under your legs and realise the ground beneath you may once have held enough kocho to outlast a war. There's a quiet pride among the women tonight. You notice it in the way they nod as the platters pass. Women are the keepers of enset, the planters, the fermenters. The ones who know exactly when the trunk is ripe enough to carve open, when the mash is sour enough to be palatable, and how long to bury it in palm-lined pits. One woman, sitting near the outer ring, catches your gaze and smiles. She points to the ko and then to her chest. "This is from my mother's grove," someone translates. It's a flex, a gentle one, but a flex nonetheless. You learn that in some rural regions, girls receive unset plants as part of their inheritance. Not goats, not coins. Living trees. And the number of trees a woman tended by marriage was once a secret code for her value, not to others, but to herself. A silent arithmetic of power. There's a reason onset is sometimes called the tree against hunger. Scholars estimate that a single mature plant can yield over 80 kilograms of food, enough to sustain a person for months. Some say it's even climate resilient, able to survive droughts that would kill ordinary crops. But despite this, onset rarely appears in modern export charts or celebrity chef recipes. Historians still argue why. Some blame colonial culinary preferences. Why celebrate a sour, fermented food when you can ship out sweet coffee beans? Others cite logistical issues, since kocho has a short shelf life and a challenging smell during fermentation. A polite way of saying it's not dinner party friendly. But here in this courtyard, kocho reigns quietly. You take another bite, pairing it with spicy lentils this time, and suddenly the texture makes sense. It's a canvas, not a painting. The music rises again. This time the melody is playful. A new performer steps forward, not with an instrument, but with a carved stick and a bag of pebbles. The sound he makes, like tapping rain on a tin roof. It's called the senzar, and it's usually reserved for village games or lullabies. But tonight, it takes center stage. The performer balances the stick on his forehead, then spins it with a flick. Laughter bubbles from the crowd. Then, a story, a fable about a jealous farmer, an unset grove, and a talking cow who warns the village of impending drought. You don't follow every twist, but the punchline lands. Laughter breaks like soft thunder. Apparently, the cow demands fermented butter as tribute for saving the town. You'll never look at dairy the same way again. A scholarly voice near you murmurs, there's a version of that story in the Oromia oral histories. Only in theirs, it's a hyena. You turn to listen. The scholar, young, bright-eyed, glasses sliding down his nose, explains that Ethiopian banquet stories often blend myth and memory. They shift shape depending on who's telling them, but they all return to the land, to what feeds, heals, and haunts it. You look again at the kocho in your hand and think, maybe it is a story. And then the unexpected happens. A drum beat stops, a call rings out, a woman steps forward holding a single enset leaf high above her head. Everyone goes quiet. She begins to sing, not words, but a melody that swells like steam from a cooking pot. Her voice is rough, textured like the bark of the tree itself, and yet glides. The leaf, it turns out, is symbolic, a prayer, a wish, a reminder. Some believe it invokes protection for the home. Others say it calls ancestors to witness the gathering. Historians still argue its precise meaning, but no one here seems confused. The moment is clear. And just like that, the song fades. The leaf is laid gently at the base of the feast altar. Another layer of memory pressed into the night. Someone beside you sighs, not from exhaustion, but from fullness. Not the stomach kind, the spirit kind. You know the feeling, like you've eaten something invisible and it's settled in your bones. You lean back, the enset mats still warm beneath you, and listen to the crackle of oil, the low hum of conversation, and the rustle of leaves above. Somewhere in the distance, an owl calls. The feast isn't over, but this part, the enset part, has folded itself quietly into your heart. A breeze rolls through the courtyard now, cool and sweet, stirring the lantern flames into lazy dances. Your hands are warm, your lips still tingling from Buran Mitmita, and your mind drifts with the rhythm of the feast. You're comfortably full, but not done. Something new is arriving. There's a ripple of curiosity around the circle as a young man steps forward with a wooden platter. On it, raw beef, deep red, glistening, cut into neat angular strips. No garnish, no herbs, no delicate drizzle of sauce. Just meat, bold and unflinching. This is ter siga, and it's not here to coddle your palate. You glance sideways. People lean forward, expectant. This dish isn't for the shy. Traditionally served on special occasions, weddings, coronations, major banquets. Tersiga is a raw meat delicacy that's almost defiant. The meat is often carved from freshly slaughtered livestock, usually cow or ox, though depending on the region, goat may also appear. The quality must be pristine, no aging, no marinades, just pure muscle. And here's the twist, no one's handing out forks or knives. Instead, a small ceremonial dagger, often ornate with a curved blade, is passed hand to hand. This is how you eat it. You cut your own bite, wrap it with injera, and dip it into a sharp mustard sauce or chili paste. It's intimate, a little dangerous, and strangely exhilarating. The dagger reaches you. The handle is smooth, dark with age, carved with tiny concentric spirals. You hesitate, and someone nearby chuckles gently. A man offers to help. With surgical precision, he slices a perfect sliver and tucks it into a piece of injera. You accept. The bite is cool, buttery, rich. There's something primal about it, like you've skipped 1,000 years of cooking just to get closer to the animal's essence. And yes, you're very awake now. There's a phrase muttered around the platter, leb leb nu, meaning the heart is hot. It's said that eating teres siga stirs courage, virility, boldness. Some claim warriors in centuries past consumed it before battle. Others whisper it was once used in secret ceremonies of brotherhood, where daggers met wrists and vows were sealed with blood and beef. Historians still argue whether those rituals were ever real or simply exaggerated over time. Either way, tonight the meat binds the group in silence and steel. Just as the last slices vanish, a new guest arrives. Not a person. A bowl. Small, shallow, filled with dark, viscous sauce. This is awazi, a blend of berbere, mustard, honey, and tej. Yes, fermented honey wine again. It's sweet, spicy, and sharp, and it's here to test your limits. One dip too much, and it burns a hole straight through your sleepiness. But just enough? It's alchemy. You taste it. Your eyes water a little. Your heartbeat flutters like a moth near fire. Someone across the mat gives you a subtle nod. Respect earned. The music shifts again. Now low, resonant. The musenka returns, joined by a man with a flute carved from bamboo. The sound is soft, nearly drowned by the crackling of nearby torches. Still, it weaves under everything. You don't notice it at first, then suddenly realise it's been there all along. Another story floats across the courtyard. This one's about a banquet interrupted. A royal cousin, jealous and drunk, challenged the host to a duel over who could eat the most tiga. Spoiler, neither of them won. The story ends with both men fainting and the cook being promoted to general. You're not sure if it's true, but you hope it is. As the laughter dies down, an older woman taps a wooden spoon against her cup 3 times. Tap, tap, tap. A hush falls. She speaks a single word. Zemena. It means remembrance. Suddenly the mood shifts, from laughter to reverence. Another dish appears, kitfo. Unlike terehega, this one is minced raw meat, mixed with warmed spiced butter and a gentle herb called mekelesha. It's smoother, more delicate. It's also sacred, traditionally served during religious holidays or intimate family events. Kitfo is a bridge between feasting and fasting, between abundance and restraint. Some believe it cleanses, others say it softens the soul. You're not sure, but the warmth of the butter alone feels like a lullaby. And then, just when you think your plate is full again, it's placed. A new round of injera appears, this one darker in colour, fermented longer. You learn that multiple rounds of injera, each with a different tang and texture, mark stages of the feast. Early injera is for energy, mid-meal injera is for soaking flavour, and the late-night injera, that's for binding the memory. You reach for a piece and it folds easily in your fingers, cool, pliant, alive. You scoop up the last of the kitfo, swirl it through a wazi, and let it dissolve on your tongue. It's the kind of bite that makes your shoulders drop and your mind float. A gentle hand touches your wrist. Someone offers you a carved gourd cup, filled not with tej or tala, but with a pale, cloudy liquid, arake, a clear, potent spirit distilled from barley or wheat. It's strong, shockingly so. A single sip sends a warm surge through your chest, no need for a second. You set the cup down and feel the world slow. This isn't the peak of the banquet, it's the descent. The meat is fading, the spice is settling, and yet something in you is just waking up. The kind of wakefulness that only comes when you've tasted danger, devotion, and raw delicacy. You lean back. The stars above are clearer now. The moon's moved westward, less watchful, and somewhere near the shadows, the dagger is being cleaned, wrapped in cloth and placed in a cedar box. The ritual is complete. But the night is still young. The meat course has ebbed, but the rhythm of the banquet continues, like waves that refuse to retreat fully from the shore. You stretch your legs slightly, just enough to ease the dull ache from sitting cross-legged, and look around. There's a softness to the crowd now, a kind of hush that isn't silence but satisfaction, and then you hear it. The unmistakable glug-glug of a tej flask being tipped to enthusiastically. A round of laughter ripples across the courtyard as one guest overpours into a tiny beaker and nearly drowns his neighbour's injera. But no one's upset. This is part of it. Tej, the honey wine, isn't just a drink. It's an experience, a loop, a never-ending pour that begins when the first toast is made and ends, Well, no one really knows when it ends. You hold your own cup steady, its golden contents glowing in the firelight. Tej is cloudy, unfiltered, and a bit unpredictable. Every batch is different, some sweeter, some with more bite, and every household guards its recipe like a family heirloom. The key ingredient? Gesho leaves, a bittering agent similar to hops but with a wilder, greener tang. You take a sip. Warmth blooms across your chest like slow fire. It's not the burning rush of araki, it's gentler, rounder, like a long-forgotten memory curling back into your bones. Now a challenge. The Tej loop. You may not have noticed it at first, but there's an unspoken gameplay, a test of courtesy, endurance, and drinking etiquette. When someone pours you Tej, you must accept it. To decline is rude, but once your cup is empty, and only when it's empty they will refill it. Again, and again, and again. You begin to see the trap. You sip slowly. Someone notices. They nod approvingly. Because here's the real rule. The guest who stops drinking first unintentionally implies that the host's hospitality is lacking, not an insult anyone dares to deliver. So the Tej flows, round and round, like stories, like memories. At the centre of the gathering, a man stands up and clears his throat. He's older, with a grey beard that reaches nearly to his chest. His robe is stained with spice and honey, and he wears it like a king. He raises his cup. Tonight, he says, we drink for the ancestors who invented patience. The crowd chuckles, but you can tell it's half joke, half truth. In Ethiopia, patience is baked into everything, from the month-long fermentation of kocho to the 3-hour coffee ceremony to the entire pacing of this banquet. Fast is rude, rushing is suspicious, and meals that unfold over many hours, that's just how you say, I care. You sip again, careful now. The Tej has crept up behind your eyelids, casting everything in a gentle blur. The lamps, the dancers, even your own fingertips look like they've been wrapped in soft gauze. Beside you, someone claps once. A new rhythm begins. This time the music is lighter. Flutes, hand drums, the occasional hum of a kra. A group of women rise and begin moving in unison, their shoulders rippling like silk in water. The traditional eskista dance isn't flashy, it's precise, controlled. And the upper body isolation? You try it for half a second and immediately give up. The dancers' faces are serene, serious. Every movement tells a story. Some say the eskista mimics the rolling hills of the Ethiopian countryside. Others argue it originated as a war dance meant to intimidate and confuse. Historians, of course, still argue about its origins. But tonight it feels like an offering, a gift to the rhythm of the night. Someone passes you a piece of dried fruit, figs maybe, or dates. Sticky, sweet, grounding. You nibble at it, grateful for the sugar, and listen as the older man speaks again. He tells a story of a long-forgotten king who once tried to end a feast early. The people were horrified. Does he not trust our spirits to guide the fire? One elder allegedly asked. The banquet, by the way, resumed without the king. Possibly apocryphal, possibly not. Then comes a fringe tidbit you almost miss. In some regions of Ethiopia, particularly among the garage people, Tej isn't just consumed. It's interpreted. A bitter batch, a sign of unrest. Too sweet, a warning of flattery or deceit. Hosts would taste before pouring, and some even claim to read fortunes in the residue, like wine sommeliers crossed with oracles. You swirl your cup. The Tej clings to the sides in slow motion, like syrup resisting the end of a dream. Then someone across the circle tries to stand and immediately sits back down, dizzy with honey and spice. Laughter erupts again. A young boy weaves through the guests with a pitcher too big for his hands, carefully filling the emptiest cups. The loop continues. But this part of the night is different, quieter. You notice that voices grow gentler. Laughter doesn't break the rhythm, it joins it, and the air seems heavier, as if soaked in centuries of repetition. These banquets, you realise, are rituals of echo. Everything here, food, music, movement, has been done before and will be done again, and you're part of it now. One final refill finds your cup. You lift it slowly, make eye contact with your host across the firelight, and drink. Not to be polite, not to stay in the loop, but because in this moment you want to. You shift your weight slightly and notice your fingers are beginning to remember a rhythm. The slow dip and tear of injera, the scoop, the fold. There's a comfort in it now, like your hands have finally been admitted into the banquet's choreography. But just as you settle into the routine, someone slides a platter toward you. It's not the food that catches your attention, it's how it's arranged. Injera again, yes. But this time it covers the entire tray like a canvas. On top, small piles of lentils, cabbage stew, minced meat and garlic laced spinach, all arranged in precise little mounds. Each topping occupies its own corner. No mixing, no overlapping, a visual mosaic of restraint. Welcome to the etiquette of the plate that touches nothing. You're tempted to swirl it all together, resist. Here, every item is given its space, its dignity. Injera isn't just a bread substitute. It's a statement piece, and how you eat from it says more than you might think. A whisper from your left. Don't take from the center unless it's yours. You freeze. Look again. Yes, there's a clear division, invisible but understood. Shared trays often indicate shared status. But within them, micro-territories exist. A bite from someone else's quadrant is like reaching across someone's journal page mid-sentence. This isn't just manners, it's hierarchy. Power laid out in injera and stew. The closer you sit to the center of the platter, the more important your position. The sauces, the meat, the slow-cooked richness, those are closest to the honored guests. Toward the edges, simpler bites, more vegetables, less spice. You're somewhere in the middle. Respectable. Curious. Curialty. Not royalty, but no one's asking you to leave either. You take a cautious pinch from your designated zone. A bit of at-kilt what? Spiced cabbage, carrot and potato. Soft, buttery, fragrant with turmeric. You feel like you've just eaten a spoonful of warm sun. This you think is a hug disguised as a vegetable. Across the mat, someone dips into the center. All heads turn. A child, maybe 6 or 7 years old. Chubby fingers reach for a piece of fried lamb near the middle. You brace for a scolding, but none comes. Instead, a soft laugh. Someone slides the tray closer to the child. Another gesture, another code. Children, it seems, operate outside the food laws. You glance at your own injera, now slightly stained with turmeric and lentil. You hesitate. Can you fold this edge into a new bite? Or does that breach invisible boundaries? This is where things get philosophical. A nearby elder leans in. The bread holds the story, he says. Don't erase the pages. He smiles as he says it, but you feel the weight of the metaphor. Each scoop, each bite, changes the landscape. To smother one dish with another is to muddle the meaning. You're not just eating, you're narrating. And then there's the injera itself. This batch has a deeper color, a sign it was fermented longer. It's tangier, softer at the edges, slightly crisp underneath. Historians still debate whether this method came from ancient Aksumite practices or was influenced by southern Nilotic tribes, but wherever it originated, it's become sacred. You learn something strange. Injera is often the last thing eaten at a banquet. Not the bread used to carry the stew, but the bread beneath the stew, the base layer. After all the toppings are gone, guests tear up the foundation injera and eat it last, rich with every flavor it has soaked in. It's called the suga injera, the meat-soaked bread, and it's revered. It's also where the emotional climax of the meal hides. That last bite? That's the memory keeper. You take a piece from the bottom now. It's darker, wet, almost sweet from the mingling of sauces. You chew slowly like you're reading the end of a letter. It's good. No, it's perfect. And not because of what it tastes like, but because of what it remembers. Around you, the pace slows. Not because people are done, but because they're full in a different way now. The loudest part of the feast has passed. The shouting, the laughter, the Tej-fueled debates over which goat is fatter, those are fading. What remains is quiet chewing, shared glances, the language of fullness. A young woman rises to sing. No drum this time, just her voice, soft and trembling. The song is about injera, you think, about hands that mix the flour, water and a show, the fermented starter, about the patience of watching bubbles rise, about waiting 3 days for something worth 15 minutes of eating. One line translates loosely to, the batter sleeps longer than the dreamer. It makes you smile. You imagine injera tucked into bed, gently fermenting beneath a cozy cotton blanket. Another fringe detail you catch. In some regions, it's said that if your injera bubbles form the shape of a lion's mane, the bread is blessed. Other stories warn against flipping injera too soon, lest the spirits get impatient. Superstition? Probably. But as you look down at your plate, you can't help but notice that one bubble does sort of look like a mane. You file that away for later. Someone places a small ceramic bowl in front of you. It's filled with water infused with lemon peel and basil. A post-meal rinse. You dip your fingers and feel the warmth, a gentle cleanse. The feast may not be over, but this course, the plate that touches nothing, has said its piece. You fold the last of your injera carefully. You don't toss it aside. You cradle it, because tonight the bread was the storyteller. A growl rumbles in the distance, not from anyone's stomach, but from the dark hills beyond the banquet courtyard. You pause mid-sip, listening. It's unmistakable. A hyena. Someone chuckles knowingly. A guest across the circle leans over and murmurs, "Don't worry, tonight they're not invited. It's not a joke, or maybe half a joke." You're about to discover a whole new layer of the banquet experience. The animals that weren't on the table, but definitely hovered around it. Back in the days of Ethiopia's highland courts, royal banquets weren't confined to elegant courtyards. Some of the most legendary feasts took place out in the open, on plateaus, beside rivers, or in the shadow of fortress walls. And when you're eating outside, surrounded by the scent of roasting meat, spice, and tej, you attract more than just guests, you attract beasts. You learn that livestock, cattle, sheep, goats were often herded nearby during banquets. Not to be butchered, at least not immediately, but to create a sense of wealth and abundance. Picture it. Nobles reclining on grass mats, sipping honey wine, while a sea of animals grazes just beyond the perimeter. A living buffet, a moving menu. But these creatures also had a more practical role, distraction. Where goats wandered, hyenas followed, and where hyenas prowled, guards stood watch. Armed men didn't just protect the nobility from rebellion, they protected them from teeth. There's even a whispered story tonight. During the reign of Emperor Yasu I in the late 1600s, it said he once challenged a hyena to a staring contest during a banquet. Allegedly, he held its gaze so long, the animal fled in shame. Metaphor? Exaggeration? Or a very brave act of questionable judgment? You chew slowly on a piece of lamb as you picture a royal in embroidered robes, nose to nose with a snarling scavenger, while his dinner grows cold. Another sound now, closer. A grunt. You glance toward the edge of the firelight and catch a pair of gleaming eyes low to the ground. But then the shape shifts. Just a donkey. It trots off into the dark with regal indifference. Not all animals were feared, some were honored. Royal hunting dogs once sat beside their masters, muzzles twitching with the scent of stew and spice. In certain noble families, birds, ibises, cranes, falcons were tied near the banquet space, symbols of watchfulness, of divine favor. Tonight, you spot one small cage near the fig tree. A dove inside, sleeping or maybe meditating. It seems unimpressed by the noise. And then someone clears their throat. A story begins, a famous one. You lean in. Once during a banquet near Lake Tana, a lion cub wandered into the feast. No panic. No spears. The host calmly ordered that a portion of raw meat, seasoned with berbe, be placed on a silver platter. The cub devoured it, purred, and curled up near the hearth. From that night on, the lion became the feast's mascot. The story ends like this. When the emperor died, the lion refused to eat and was buried beside him. Probably a myth, but who cares? Because the animals at these feasts weren't just threats. They were omens, symbols, sometimes honored guests. A young girl beside you whispers, "Some villagers still believe hyenas can speak at night if you feed them the right kind of meat. Specifically, meat that hasn't been salted. Unsalted flesh, apparently, allows them to carry messages across worlds." You stare at your plate, not sure whether to feel enchanted or slightly cursed. Meanwhile, a new dish arrives. Something crunchy. Thin strips of fried tripe, crisped in butter, topped with lemon zest and chili. The texture? Oddly satisfying, like biting into spicy lace. This dish, someone says, honors the animal, not waste. Use every part. Organs, skin, nothing discarded. To waste edible parts was to insult the creature's gift. You take another bite, this time with gratitude. For the chew, the crackle, the history. Then comes a short song, rhythmic, repetitive, like a chant. You don't catch all the words, but the chorus stands out. Even the beasts know this is sacred. You believe it. Another animal passes by, a cat, thin, agile, tail high like a flag. No one shoos it away. Instead, someone tears a bit of injera, dabs it in lentils, and sets it gently on the edge of the mat. A small offering to the cat or the spirits watching through its eyes. And just when the night feels like it can't stretch any further into myth, a boy rises, holding a long wooden flute. He begins to mimic animal calls. A jackal, a cow, then, remarkably, a hyena. His version is so accurate, the courtyard freezes. Everyone listens. For a moment, it feels like the real thing is circling just beyond the firelight. You shiver, but also you smile. Because this is the beauty of the feast. It's not just food, it's the animal kingdom folding itself around the table. It's stories that blur the line between real and remembered. Creatures both feared and loved, invited and banished, honored and eaten. You lean back, heart slower now, tej swirling in your cup. And somewhere in the distance, the hyena calls again. This time it sounds like laughter. Would you like? It stretches on like woven fabric, one thread blending into the next. Lanterns sputter softly in the breeze, casting strange silhouettes on the courtyard walls. Dancers, elders, birds in cages, and now musicians. A trio steps forward beneath the central tree. One tunes a one-stringed fiddle wrapped in goat hide. Its sound is mournful, aged. Another plucks gently a small pentagon-shaped harp, and the third lifts a wooden flute, darkened by decades of breath and stories. Then, the first note, long, slow. It cuts through the air like silk through still water, soft but not shy. The masenko groans low and you feel it not in your ears but in your ribs. It's more vibration than sound. There are no lyrics, just tones, and you realize this isn't entertainment, it's medicine. The kra joins in, delicate and deliberate, each note placed like a spoonful of honey into hot tea. Not here to impress, here to wrap around you, like a blanket stitched from memory. Then, another sound, not from an instrument, but from a voice. A woman, older than the firelight itself, lifts her head and, not a scream, a ululation, a high-pitched, rippling call that rises and falls like a tide. It's not frightening, it's grounding. Somehow it makes the air feel thicker, like the night itself is leaning in to listen. You learn that ululation is part celebration, part invocation, used for weddings, births, and sometimes funerals. Tonight, it honors the feast, or maybe the memory buried beneath it. Some say it comes from Nubian rituals, others that it predates language itself, a sound passed down through women's throats since time began. You sit motionless. It feels like the voice is moving through your bones, excavating emotions you didn't even pack for this journey. Then, quiet, just the crackle of torches and the soft slap of bare feet on stone. Two dancers begin to move, slow, gliding, heels barely brushing the earth. Each motion is a whisper, a memory mimed. They aren't performing, they're remembering. It's said that some Ethiopian banquet dances tell stories that can't be written down, about famine, about lost love, about the day an emperor died and the coffee turned bitter. You may not know the story, but you feel it in the sway of hips, in the way one dancer pulls away then returns, like a thread tugged gently, then released. Suddenly a new rhythm, not from hands, from bones. Someone nearby is clicking two rib bones together, rhythmically, deliberately. You've heard of drums, maracas, tambourines, but this, ulna and radius percussion, bone music. In some rural Ethiopian communities, animal bones are cleaned, blessed, then played. The symbolism? Even in death, the animal contributes to joy, a way to honor its spirit. Or maybe it just sounds right. The rhythm builds click, 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 click. And someone whispers, these aren't just beats, they're messages. Different patterns for different emotions. Grief, gratitude, pride. Some say trained ears can read them like sheet music. There's even a fringe belief, spoken quietly, that if played near a grave, certain rhythms can summon ancestors. You make a note, do not clap along out of sync. The flute returns, clear and bird-blood like it flutters over the bones, then dives beneath them. A duet of breath and marrow, wood and spirit. Someone passes you a dish. Dried honeycomb, sticky, crunchy, faintly floral. You chew slowly. Somehow it tastes like the music sounds. Bittersweet, lingered, sacred. A soft voice near you says, that song was for her husband. You glance toward the woman who ululated. Her face is calm now, but her hands tremble. He died last planting season, the voice says. She hasn't sung since. You nod. Nothing to say. But the silence between you isn't empty. It's honored. The dancers retreat. The musicians place their instruments on soft cloth. No applause, just reverent stillness. And in that stillness, you realize something. Feasts like this aren't always about abundance. Sometimes they're about absence. About the ones who should be sitting beside you. The bowl that stays empty, the chair left untouched. Someone quietly places an uncut piece of injera near the fire. No one eats it. It will remain there until dawn, a plate for the departed. And even now, in this sacred hush, the banquet continues. You feel the weight of it all, the history, the loss, the joy, all pressed between drum beats and candlelight. This isn't a performance, it's a prayer. And you've been invited to witness it. Music dissolves into the night air like sugar in hot tea. Slowly, silently, in its place, voices. Lower now, more intimate. You can't make out every word, but you recognize the rhythm. Laughter here, a sigh there, a lull that feels less like an ending and more like a long, deep exhale. Then a new course. Not food, trade. Someone unrolls a rough cloth across the center mat. On it, glass jars, pouches of spice, bundles wrapped in leaves. And salt. Not your average salt. This is a malt, compressed blocks, each one ringing like ceramic when tapped. Once these were currency across Ethiopia's trade routes, roughly the size of a paperback and worth their weight in lentils, livestock, or loyalty. It's easy to forget, in a world of QR codes and contactless cards, that salt was once a kingmaker. You learn that banquet menus, especially for nobles and royals, were shaped by trade, not just tradition. If the caravans arrived in time, you'd get cloves from the coast, saffron from Arabia. If they didn't, turnips, maybe an apology. Tonight you're lucky. The air smells of cinnamon and something sharp, peppery. Clove-studded lamb is served next, still sizzling, the fragrance curling like incense. It's sweet, spicy, so tender it feels like the meat gave up and just melted into itself. Beside it, golden chickpeas dusted with saffron, a rare treat. Someone whispers the spice came from Yemeni traders who arrived just last week, with camels and gossip. Whether true or just part of the feast's growing mythology, no one questions it. A woman nearby laughs as she tells how her grandfather once bribed an official with cinnamon to settle a land dispute. It worked, and he was still paying it off 3 years later. You laugh too, but the lesson lands. Spices weren't just flavor, they were leverage. Another guest chimes in. An emperor once promised a banquet seat to the merchant who brought him the reddest chili in the land. When two traders tied, he made them eat each other's spices until one cried. The winner passed out from heat stroke, but earned a title anyway. Historians still argue when this happened, but all agree food was political. The meal might be ceremonial, but the ingredients whispered messages. You taste the saff again. Suddenly, it feels like a quiet brag. Or salt changes hands. Quietly, no fanfare, just familiarity. A block of amoli for dried fish, a clay pot for fresh coriander, deals sealed with a nod. You watch, fascinated, as a mini-market springs to life beside a pile of roasted sweet potatoes. You're told that in the past, banquet courtyards doubled as markets. Feasts weren't just about celebrating, they were about stocking up. One night of joy could fund 6 months of survival. A cousin might bring goat cheese, an uncle, copper earrings, and every deal made over stew and stories. Even today, in rural villages, the tradition lives on. Now someone places something beside you. A small pouch of bunna beans, green coffee beans, unroasted raw. A gift, an invitation to tomorrow's coffee ceremony, someone explains. You nod, not sure what to say, but touched nonetheless. You run your fingers over the beans. They feel cool, waxy. You wonder how many cups they'll become. How many conversations, how many invitations like this one. Then a strange tale catches your ear. In some highland villages, they say, if you bring salt to a feast but leave with nothing, you're cursed with flavorless children. No one's quite sure what that means. Maybe dull personalities, maybe bad cooking. But it was enough of a threat that guests would often sneak dried herbs into their sleeves before leaving. Flavor theft. Now you look around. You notice the quiet tucking away of items, not stealing, preserving. Each guest gathering something to remember the night by. A story, a bean, a single flower from the centerpiece. And suddenly it clicks. The food nourishes, the music stirs. But this exchange, it anchors, giving and receiving. It's its own ritual. Not a contract, not a ceremony, just a micro-promise traded in palmfuls of salt and laughter. Your fingers still rest on the coffee beans as someone beside you says softly, the food leaves, but this stays. And they're right, because long after the lamb is gone, long after the Masenko's final note, long after you forget the name of the chili that made you weep, you'll remember this, the warmth of a hand, the press of a pouch, the smile that said, you were here. Would you like me to help you craft an outro or visual cue for this final reflective section of your video? A quiet breeze stirs the embers. They spark briefly before fading into the night. You shift on the unset mat, your belly full, but your senses still tuned. Something is shifting again. Less savory now, more spiritual. The music has faded, the trade has slowed. It's being poured like a lullaby, soft, golden. unhurried. Now comes the paradox: fasting and feasting. Plates are being cleared, but not scraped, not stacked, just gently lifted, as if even the dishes have earned their rest. A priest in a white robe sits near the fire, his hands folded, his eyes lowered. A voice beside him whispers a blessing in gaze, ancient, slow, and full of weight. And you understand now. In Ethiopia, food is never just food. It's calendar, it's doctrine, it's philosophy. More than 180 days a year fasting. Not a cleanse, not a trend, but a sacred rhythm. No meat, no dairy, no eggs, often not even oil. Wednesdays, Fridays, Lents, Advents, holy month upon holy month. Strict, yes, but deeper than rules is the devotion. So why tonight? Why the buttered kitfoot, the honey-thick kitch? Because tonight breaks the fast. The timing is deliberate, down to the hour. This isn't indulgence, it's resurrection. Each bite is a return, a welcome home, a quiet chorus saying, "You made it." You sip mint lemon water and an older woman beside you smiles. She says the first thing she eats after every fast is injera, but only if it's folded by her daughter. She doesn't explain why. She doesn't need to. There's meaning in the hand that serves. A man across the circle shares a story. Some monks once challenged each other to a fasting duel, not just from food, from even speaking of food. The winner lasted 63 days, broke the silence with just 2 words: pass salt. You laugh, imagining the build-up, the dry lips, the silent side eyes. But beneath the humour lies something profound. Historians still debate the origins of these fasts. Were they born from religious law or older cycles, lunar rhythms, harvest patterns, scarcity rituals? Whatever the source, the legacy is clear. Fasting shaped the feast. The absence made the flavour richer. The restraint made the colours brighter. Even the sour bread tastes indulgent tonight. It's as if your tongue, after a long sleep, has become a better listener. You're handed a bowl of azifa, lentils mashed with mustard and lime. Simple. A fasting dish. But tonight, it's kissed with butter, just a touch, a wink. The food says, we remember the rules, but we've earned the joy. Then comes at kilt again, carrots, cabbage, potatoes, usually oil-free during fasts. But now, lightly sautéed.
The middle ground!
The bridge between memory and moment. You realise this night was built on rhythm, a sacred dance between denial and celebration. One cannot exist without the other. And then, another layer. 2 young women talk nearby. One fasts strictly, honouring every holy day. The other adjusts, adds when she can, rests when she must. They don't argue, no judgment, just different cadences, different hearts. Both valid. Because here, fasting is not punishment, it's cleansing. Centering. Even children learn slowly, not just what to avoid, but why. So tonight's feast? It doesn't reject the fast, it honours it. A soft hymn rises, not from instruments, but from voices. A song you heard earlier, sung slower now, like a closing prayer. You catch the words. The night holds the blessing, but the fast gives it shape. Then something new, a bowl of chechebsa. Fried flatbread tossed in butter, and usually a breakfast dish. Tonight, dessert. Crispy edges, spicy warmth, a final nudge, a gentle waking. You smile, because it's the perfect contradiction. Tonight you've eaten as if the fast never existed, and yet you feel it in every bite. That's the paradox, the holy tension, the silence before the drum, the hunger before the honey. And just as your thoughts drift further, someone lifts their cup. To those who waited, they say, and to those who never had to, you raise yours too. Not just for yourself, but for all the hands that shape this night. The flame, the patience, the fast, the feast, the ache, and the healing. Deepens, settling over the courtyard like a second skin. The torches burn lower, the crowd has thinned. Some guests slip quietly into the dark. Others curl against stone walls, drunk not just on tej, but on memory. And just when you think it's all winding down, it sharpens. A copper spoon taps gently against a bowl, not a call for food, but for attention. You sit up, a hush falls. This is the moment the elders call banquet diplomacy. You're about to witness how Chilean charm once steered entire kingdoms. A slender man stands, his robes tight despite the warmth, his voice calm, clipped, no drama, just a story. 2 families, brothers by blood, enemies by land, and a bowl of stew, so spicy it silenced an argument that swords never could. The tale? passed down from lip to lip. 7 kinds of chili, 3 of which no longer grow. A grandmother served it at a wedding both families were forced to attend. No one spoke during the meal. Not from peace, from self-preservation. By the end, mouths burned, tears flowed, and a truce was reached over a shared jug of tej. The speaker smiles. Historians still argue, he says, whether it was the recipe or the dehydration that saved the day. Laughter rolls softly across the courtyard. But this isn't just a cute anecdote. You realize feasts like this were weapons, or maybe instruments, tools to soften decisions, simmer alliances, delay betrayals, one dish at a time. Back when Ethiopia's nobles ruled their own fiefdoms, each a small kingdom within an empire, the palace used food like chess. A vassal growing too bold? Invite him to dinner, seat him far from the salt, a general wavering in loyalty? Serve him his mother's chicken stew, spiced just so. A marriage alliance? Make sure both families tasted the same honey in their tej. Food wasn't just sustenance, it was strategy. Tonight, you taste something political. Duba pumpkin stew with garlic, ginger, and a slow, sneaky heat. It's grounding, comforting, until it isn't. Then it jabs just a little. It tastes like negotiation. Someone beside you whispers an old belief. In Tigray, they say certain herbs, like osine or koseret, can bend the tongue toward peace. Elders used to slip them into stew just before guests arrived. Folk magic? Psychology? No one's sure. But now you're wondering, what's been in your bowl all night? A younger guest speaks up. Do banquets still work like that today? The speaker smiles. Not in the same robes, he says, but yes, still over food. Always over food. He shares a modern tale, a village dispute headed for court. But instead of lawyers, they shared coffee, then lunch, then dessert. By the end, no one remembered what started the fight. You laugh, but the truth sticks. Out near the edge of the fire, like you spot 2 guests negotiating. Not with fists, not with documents, with bites, toasts, shared stew. The slow meal has a power. It denies escalation. It demands rhythm. It turns fury into fatigue, then into forgiveness. And if it doesn't, there's always more tej. Then a servant enters, a new dish. Ye'abesha gomen, collard greens in clarified butter. Gentle, herbaceous, not flashy, but familiar, steady, dependable. You're told it's served during tense banquet moments. Its message? Let's calm down. The butter soothes, the greens ground. The flavor says, we're still here, still sharing the same plate. An elder rises. He speaks in Amharic. We speak with mouths that have tasted the same bread. It sounds like poetry, but it's also policy. Then, something curious, a bowl of dry roasted barley. No fanfare, just passed, hand to hand, an old tradition. Given to those on the brink of disagreement. Crunchy, plain, dry. It slows you down, makes you sip, chew, think. It's the banquet saying, here, take a breath. You do, and you get it. More tej flows, slower now. A toast is made, not to victory, not even to compromise, but to ongoing conversations. The most honest kind of peace. The kind that takes many meals to shape. You glance around, no one is shouting, no one is storming out, plates are passed, jugs refilled, agreements not signed, but sipped, because sometimes chili does what treaties cannot. Feel it now, the weight of the night settling on your shoulders, soft and full. There's warmth in your belly, a flutter of sleep in your chest, but just when you think the feast has told its final tale, it shifts again, this time toward endings. But here, endings don't arrive with a bang. They unfold like embers, glowing one last time before letting go. The music is gone, the chatter hushed. What remains feels almost ceremonial, the tending of leftovers. You glance around, not a single scrap discarded. Every dish, every morsel, packed with care. Banana leaf bundles, clay jars, wrapped stalks of unset. In this place, food isn't just eaten, it's honoured. And what isn't finished tonight, it has a destiny. A murmur moves through the courtyard. A young man approaches the central hearth, kneels and places leftover injera into a carved wooden box. That's for the guards, someone whispers. You blink. The guards? Yes, the ones beyond the firelight, who didn't dance, didn't drink, barely stepped into the feast. Their reward? The final flavors of the night. But even that comes with ritual. A small bowl sits untouched on the wall's edge. That, an elder says, is for what watches while we sleep. Not just guards, but spirits, ancestors, the land itself. You shiver, not from fear, And then, the part you never expected, from the far side of the courtyard, a figure appears, tall, hooded, wrapped in a lion fur cape. A costume? Maybe not. No one flinches, no one explains. The lion of the feast, someone whispers. In some villages, this figure carries the memory and strength gathering. They do not eat, they do not speak. They walk slowly 3 times around the courtyard, a procession, a protection, a prayer. Their feet are bare, they carry a staff wrapped in green and red thread. As they pass, the guests bow their heads. You follow suit, it feels right, it feels ancient. After the 3rd circle, the lion kneels at the centre mat. Into their hands, a bundle, injera soaked in stew, a sprig of kosseret, a single cube of salt. Then, silently, they vanish. Later, someone tells you, in some places the lion is chosen at random. In others, they're the host's most trusted guard. And in one region, it's always the one who spoke the least. Because the quiet ones, an elder says, carry the weight of memory. You sit in silence, chewing on that. Then, warm bowls of milk passed around. You accept yours. It smells of cardamom and cloves. It slides down your throat like silk. The warmth spreads, gently undoing the spice, the tej, the night's chill. This is the closing note. You glance at the surface. Your reflection looks back. Blurry, soft, unfamiliar. Not because you've changed, but because you've been changed. And now, the final call. Not a speech, not a ceremony, just a question. The host rises, thanks everyone, then asks who will stay to see the fire out. Some smile, some nod, others rise, bow, and disappear into the dark. No shame in leaving. But for those who stay, one final duty, you choose to stay. And you learn, in some traditions, the last guests guard the feast, not from danger, but for memory. Because memory needs witnesses. To leave it unguarded is to let the story scatter like ash, so you sit, quiet now, watching the flames ebb slowly. A plate of honeycomb and barley rests beside you, one last bite, shared only with those who chose to linger. The guards join you, jackets off, sandals loosened, they eat in silence. A dog noses through, someone feeds it a sliver of meat. The night exhales, someone begins to hum, and in that moment you understand. The feast didn't end when the food did. It ended when the fire remembered. The flames are low now, just orange whispers curling around charcoal bones. You've sunk deeper into your seat, the enset mat shaped to your body, the air thick with sleep and spice. You could drift off here, warm milk in your belly, cardamom on your fingertips. But then, something shifts, a murmuring gentle near the far edge of the courtyard. A story is approaching. One that doesn't belong entirely to the past, but isn't part of the present either. A figure steps from the shadows, older, robes embroidered with gold thread. He doesn't raise his voice, he doesn't need to. Each word is rounded by time, and every syllable lands with the weight of a remembered world. He begins, the story of Haile Selassie's last feast. And the courtyard leans in. This isn't official history, this is memory, braided with rumour, fact stitched to feeling. And as with everything tonight, truth lies in the telling. The elder says it was early 1974, tensions rising, protests in the cities, whispers in every corridor of power. Yet on a balmy night in Addis Ababa, Selassie hosted a private banquet. Nobles, clergy, dignitaries. The table? Lavish. Golden trays of teresigar, injera so thin it shimmered like silk, stews laced with saffron and black cumin, roasted duck, wild honey, tilapia poached with spices from Lake Tana, wine in crystal decanters, ancient flasks of tej bearing fingerprints older than memory. But the emperor? He ate little, picked at lentils, sipped water, spoke even less. People noticed, no one asked. The elder's voice drops. Some say he already knew what was coming. Not a feast of power, but a feast of farewell. And then come the fringe stories. Chefs who wept in the kitchen, a guard so overcome he served dessert first. Tej that was too sweet, but no one said why. Historians still debate it. Did it happen? Was it erased? Embellished? But tonight, no one questions, because this isn't about proving, it's about remembering, the elder continues. After the banquet, Selassie allegedly requested one final dish, a bowl of shiro. No meat, no ceremony, just chickpeas, garlic, oil, and the kind of silence that makes even the walls listen. He ate every bite, then stood, blessed the kitchen staff, and left. Wordless. Some say that bowl still exists, locked in a palace cupboard, buried under a fig tree, mixed into the brick of a church. You don't know what to believe, but you feel the moment press against your ribs, because even if that wasn't his last feast, it was someone who cooked, who who served, who tasted that stew and never returned to that table again. Around you, elders wipe quiet tears. Not grief, something deeper, the ache of memory meeting ritual. A few people rise, not to leave but to listen with their whole bodies. The elder bows, no applause, just quiet nods. Then a voice hums the national anthem, just the first few bars, slow, unforced. It floats, hovers and dissolves into the smoke. A dish is passed, no label, just a thick red stew topped with a swirl of butter. You taste it. It tastes like endings, not sad, just like something rich that knows it cannot stay. Silence, shared bowls, a reverence so deep no one dares disturb it. Because the last feast, Selassie's or anyone's, isn't defined by the food. It's defined by the people who carried it forward. One story at a time. You lower your head, inhale the last of the steam rising from your plate. The fire crackles, the elder sits, and once more the courtyard remembers. The last bites have been taken, the final stories told, and still, the courtyard does not empty. There's something sacred about these moments. Fragile, slow, more silence than sound. The fire? Just coals now, glowing like distant planets in the ash. The air is thick, with wood smoke, with memory, with sleep. You sit among a few others, fewer now, but no less present. This is the part of the banquet most forget. But not here, not tonight. A rustle in the distance. Two women return, bundles in their arms, wrapped in palm fronds, tied with dyed twine. Not leftovers. Tokens, blessings. You're handed one. It smells of mint, ash, something like lemon. Inside, a sliver of dried, a sprig of tenedum, the rue from the feast's beginning, a bookend, a seal. In the Highlands, they say, you carry these home not just as a reminder, but as a wish, a safe journey, a shared space remembered, a story to bloom again. You don't know yet what you'll do with yours, but you know it means something. Across from you, one final tale is being told, soft, gentle, like a lullaby spoken, not sung. He speaks of quiet feasts still alive in the Highlands. Fewer guests, simpler dishes, but the rhythm, still there. The courtyard, the incense, the injera, the song, even the line of the feast, now just a boy in a stitched cape. Weird circling 3 times before running off to do his homework. He smiles, and the room warms. Because tradition doesn't always roar. Sometimes it hums, in the way a bowl is placed without words, in lentil seasoned just so, even when the berbere is gone. In the way a child pours water with both hands, never breaking eye contact. These gestures don't vanish, they evolve, but their heartbeat remains. Still pulsing, still sacred. Beside you, a woman whispers, "This one was good." She doesn't need to explain, everyone understands, because the worth of a feast isn't in its splendor, it's in its feeling. The embers flicker. The instruments are packed, the tedged jugs sit empty, sticky with golden memory. A man sweeps the courtyard, not loudly, just gently. A rhythm, helping the space let go. You close your eyes just for a moment. The lions at the gate, the scent of the incense, the weight of the night. You remember it all. You've come far, you've feasted, you've listened. You've been sung to, tested, welcomed and remembered. And now it's time to rest. Wind down begins, voice soft, intimate, like a blanket being folded over a sleeping child. The coals glow a little longer, casting their last halos into the earth. Around you, people begin to drift away, footsteps like whispers folded into memory. You stay, just a little longer, wrapped in the hush, held by the stillness of stars that do not move. The token in your palm is warm, not from fire, but from presence. The dried leaf inside crumbles slightly. Its scent rises once more, mint, lemon, smoke. You tuck it away, careful, grateful. As you rise, you pass the hearth. A final piece of injera rests near the coals, still warm. A quiet offering, a final word in a conversation that never truly ends. Outside, the hills are sleeping, the hyenas are silent, the lions, if they came, are dreaming now. The world is still safe, and you, full, at peace, gently tired, step back into the silence of your own night and carry the feast with you, its warmth, its rhythm, its quiet power. Let it settle in your breath, in your bones. Let it soften the day that came before. You've been fed, you've been held, you've been remembered. Sleep well now. You're home. Would you like help crafting the visual direction or thumbnail for this final section of your video to match its emotional tone?